Camping is changing, and we've got a lot of data to back it up. I'm Jason Epperson. This is RV Miles. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is a fun time for me every single year when the North American Camping Report comes out. This is the biggest survey of North American households that's done every year solely based on camping habits. We get to learn all about the current landscape as it pertains to the number of people that are camping, how often they're camping, when in this season, when in the year they're camping, what types of vehicles and equipment they're camping with, and all sorts of fun information. And this one is special because this is the 10th anniversary of KOA's North American Camping Report. Now, you may know KOA as the largest campground chain in North America. And every time I cover this report or some of the other monthly data reports that they put out, people comment about how KOAs are too expensive or whatever opinions they have about them. But it's really important to understand that this is not KOA's internal data. This is not data that's been collected from KOA customers. This is a report that's sponsored by KOA, but it's done by an independent research firm that surveys North American households and learns about camping habits. So set those thoughts aside, and we're going to dig into this. This being the 10th year is really cool because camping in the last 10 years has really exploded. I mean, the pandemic, of course, the pandemic was this onslaught of not just RVing and camping, but all sorts of outdoor recreation activity has all boomed, from boating to fishing, hunting, all of it. Camping, though, was on quite the rise already leading up to the pandemic. So the number of people camping, it's just an amazing thing to see right now. But it's caused a lot of problems for a lot of folks. Difficulty in getting reservations, especially at some of the greatest places across the country, the popular places that we all want to visit. Really hard to get camping reservations at some of those. Has that eased up a bit? There's some really interesting information in here that's going to tell us a lot about that. So let's dive right in and let's first talk about the last decade, not just the last year, which is really important, and I will get to that. But the last decade, what has happened in camping since 2014? Well, the number of households that identify themselves as campers has increased 23%. The number of households that actually does camp, so they might not identify as campers, but they have camped in the past year, has increased by 68% since 2014. That's wild, and it represents an additional 21 million households. And new campers represent about 9% of guests at campgrounds every single year, with 2021, 2022, and 2023 beating that 9%, with 21%, 16%, and 11% respectively. And the types of accommodations people use when they camp has also changed a lot over the last 10 years. Tent usage is up 56%, RV usage is up 96%. And cabin and glamping accommodations are up 101%. Now, you might wonder, how can those numbers be so high when the actual number of households camping hasn't increased that much? Well, it's because people are also camping more often. Since 2014, there's been a 98% increase in the number of households that camp 3 times or more each year. So over a decade, with those changes in numbers, there clearly must be some changes at campgrounds, the campground experience. And the report really points to 2 things that have become kind of common knowledge, but weren't really as well known back in 2014. One being glamping. So that's like fancy tents with sofas and beds in them, or camping in a caboose from a train, or camping in a Conestoga wagon. And overlanding, which is exploring the land remotely over longer periods of time. There's been an increase in the importance of Wi-Fi at campgrounds. Remember 10 years ago, the idea of getting Wi-Fi at campgrounds was almost laughable. Still, campgrounds have a long way to go, but just in the past 3 years, I've finally been to campgrounds where the Wi-Fi is actually usable, and that's been really surprising to me. But not only that, we have all sorts of mobile technology like Wi-Fi hotspots and Starlink that allow people to get connected on the road that didn't really exist in the forms that they do now 10 years ago. Boondocking and dispersed camping has become way more popular, way more well-known, and way less frightful of an idea to a lot of campers because you have places like YouTube where you can go learn about how other people do this stuff and do it yourself. There's also been this new way for people to get into RVing, in particular, peer-to-peer RV rentals. Virtually non-existent 10 years ago. But now you can go to RV Share, you can go to Outdoorsy, and you can rent an RV just like you would rent an Airbnb. You can still go to dealerships to rent RVs, but that's less and less common now as these peer-to-peer rental platforms have absolutely exploded. Just during the pandemic, peer-to-peer RV rentals more than doubled. And finally, there's a huge increase in the number of folks who camp with their children. Now, there's an interesting stat in here that we're going to get to about baby boomers. Baby boomers have been the heartbeat of camping for a long time, but have been gradually overshadowed by Gen X and millennials. That may be changing a little bit. More in a moment, but first, this video is sponsored by our friends at RVmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding. You get 35% off right now through the end of the month. This is the best deal they've ever offered us to give to you. RVmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding makes great mattresses that are different sizes to be able to fit those RV King and RV Queens, the different lengths, the different widths, the different thicknesses. Sometimes you can't have a mattress that's too thick or your slide won't close over the top of it or a cabinet won't open. And they have real mattresses with springs in them and everything that are vacuum packed and shipped to you in a box to a campground, to your home, wherever you are. They'll ship it to you from their factory in Arizona. They have a 120-night sleep trial. Their mattresses are toxin free and they are great. We have many of them in both of our RVs and in our home because they are real mattresses from a real mattress company and not just a piece of foam that came with your RV or that you buy off of Amazon. A good night's sleep at the campground really makes all the difference in the world. It's why most of us buy RVs so we don't have to sleep on the ground, right? If you spent a lot of money on an RV, spend a little bit more on a good night's sleep. It's a third of the time you're going to spend at the campground. RVmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding. Don't need a code for this promo. You just go to RVmattress.com/RVmiles, and then you have to enter your phone number and they text you a code. Or when this promotion is over, you can just use the promo code RVmiles and you won't get 35% off, but you'll get 25% off for using that code. Thanks so much to Brooklyn Bedding for sponsoring this channel. It really makes all the difference in the world in helping us bring you this important information. Now, all of that said, over the last decade, we've seen this big boom in camping. We've seen lots of changes in camping, but has it hit a peak? 2023 saw a reduction from the previous year of 58,470,000 active camping households to 53,670,000. What that's really showing is that boom during the pandemic, it's leveling out a bit. I don't think we're on a big decline of camping. I think if you look at those couple years as anomalies that have a little blip that goes up, that we're back to this sort of normal trajectory of as our society grows a bit, the amount of people that go camping grows a bit with them. So that's the amount of households camping, but where does camping fit in the entirety of leisure travel? Well, back in 2021, 40% of all leisure travel was camping based. In 2022, that was 32%, and in 2023, 27%, while 73% of folks travel in all sorts of different other ways. But there's an emerging trend that has been sort of overlooked, and that's the folks that blend trips between camping and other forms of travel. 80% of campers participated in some sort of blended travel in 2023, where they went camping but also maybe stayed in a hotel or a vacation rental like an Airbnb. Now, despite the decrease in the percentage of new campers in 2023, the group still accounted for 7% of campers last year. The rate of new camper entry has remained higher than pre-pandemic levels. So even though we don't have as many new campers coming into the fold as we did during the pandemic, we have more than we did pre-pandemic. The new camping base has continued to be more diverse than the overall camping market, with nearly half of new campers in the US and over half in Canada being non-white. Over half of new campers in 2023 chose campgrounds with extensive services and amenities, marking a substantial increase over 2022. But during the pandemic years, camping saw a significant uptick in urban, younger, and higher earner households entering into camping. Last year, most of the new campers were from families earning less than $100,000 a year, predominantly from suburban and rural areas. But here's a real interesting stat. The past year saw an increase in the number of baby boomers camping, 59% of whom were retired and on a fixed income. There's been an increase in lower earning Gen Z folks, but there's also been a drop in millennials who are currently at their peak earning years. In 2023, 26% of campers were lifelong campers. 42% camped off and on throughout the years. 25% started in the past few years, and 7% were new to camping. Now, while we have seen an increase in the number of families who are camping, 64% of folks camping don't have any children in the household at the current time. And something I thought was really interesting in here is the makeup of new campers is split pretty evenly among the different generations. You would think the younger generations would make up more and more of new campers out there, but really 21% are Gen Z, 28% are millennial, 22% are Gen X, and 26% are baby boomers. That's really an incredible, almost perfectly even split between the different generations out there. So that's who's camping. But what do they feel about camping? Do they like it? Are they having a good time? We've had this narrative happening over the last couple of years that as more and more people are camping, as campgrounds get more and more crowded and it becomes more and more difficult to find a campground and all that sort of stuff, and all the problems that people are having with RVs, that people are going to hate camping. Well, guess what? They kind of did in 2022. 2022 was not a great year for first camping experiences. Only 48% of people thought their first camping trip in 2022 was good or better. That's terrible. 48%. 13% of people thought their first camping trip in 2022 was awful. Didn't like anything about their first camping experience. Another 9% said it was not very good. It was not very enjoyable. And another 30% said it was just okay. It could have been better. That changed dramatically in 2023. And I think there's a good reason why. I think the campground industry has made a lot of strides into improving the experience. First of all, they've actually been able to hire some staff. Remember the real issue that businesses across the country were having with staffing in 2020 and in 2021. That largely let up in 2023. And I think that really shows in these numbers. But I also think the reduction in the number of people out there eased things up a little bit and people got a little bit more experience. So last year in 2023, 77% of people who camped for the first time thought their experience was good or better. Only 2% thought it was awful, and only 5% thought it was not very good. Also, there's been a lot of speculation that new RVers are really not enjoying their experiences out there. This report says only 1% of new RVers thought their first camping experiences were awful. Only 3% thought they were not very good. Only 10% thought they were just okay. And 86% of new RVers thought their first camping experiences were good or better. That's really, really great. Doesn't mean they're not having problems with their RVs, but they're having a good time out there. It is an enjoyable thing. I've not understood this mantra that has been spoken since the pandemic hit, since all these people started buying RVs. So many experienced RVers have been saying, well, they're going to hate it and they're just going to give them up and they're going to sell them off. Then why do you do it? I love RVing. I think most of us do. Why do we think that everybody else is going to hate it if we love it? I don't get it. And if you don't love it, why are you still doing it? Are there things that could be improved? Absolutely. But it's still an enjoyable experience to get out there and travel this country, to travel this continent. It's wonderful to be able to see the world in a different way. And it's wonderful the flexibility that a lot of folks have had over the last few years with remote work and flexibility in their jobs and schooling, being able to travel a little bit more. So we've talked a bit about who's camping and why they're camping, but let's talk about why they're not camping. Folks that choose not to camp, what are some of the barriers in their way? What are some of the reasons they choose not to camp? Some prefer other types of vacations. Some prefer other types of accommodations. Some don't have anyone to camp with. Some can't afford to travel. But let's talk about what's changed the most. There's been one thing on the list of different reasons that people aren't camping that is concerning, that is causing people not to camp. It's gone up 11%, and it's the number of people that don't feel safe and secure camping. They feel like there's some sort of danger out there that they're worried about happening to them while they're out on the road. Now, one of those things is certainly crime, but it's not the only one. Weather is another big concern. We've had a lot of extreme weather over the last few years, and people are really concerned about RVing and tent camping when extreme weather hits. Obviously, you're not in a strong, sturdy building. You have things like extreme heat with no air conditioning. You have wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes, all that sort of stuff that all feeds into somebody's feeling of safety. Okay, we've talked about who's camping, why they're not camping, but let's talk about what they intend to do this year. 57% of campers are interested in slowing down this year, and they simply want to enjoy the experience of being in the moment. 50% want travel experiences that allow them to recharge. 41% want a variety of experiences. 37% want the ability to check off several items on their travel bucket list. 34% want to be spontaneous and don't want to make plans too far in advance. And that's playing out in KOA's actual reservation data. KOA says that people are booking out a little bit less far as they have been. So that booking window, how far out somebody is booking a campsite, has decreased some. And there's been about a 5% increase in 2023 over 2022 in the amount of campsites available. So it is getting better out there, partially because fewer people camping, but also partially because the campground industry has been exploding, just like the rest of the outdoor industry over the last few years. And campground construction takes time. We are seeing more and more investment in the campgrounds, but it's taken a lot of time for some of these campgrounds to go online or some of the expansions at campgrounds to be completed. 50% of campers have natural event-based travel experiences planned for 2024. 31% are looking towards food tourism. 29% are looking to visit small towns. 27% plan to combine work and leisure travel, and 25% are looking for all-inclusive outdoor resort vacations. That's something interesting that we don't see a lot of in the camping arena. So that's 2024. But what about the next 10 years? KOA's taken a look at all this stuff, and they've made some predictions for the future of camping. First of all, they say that other segments of the outdoor hospitality sector will likely focus on a more rustic experience, similar to camping, that's less connected and closer to nature. They also think there's a lot of opportunities, by the way, for hotel-type businesses to work closer with campgrounds and the RV space and for a lot more integrations to happen. Purveyors of outdoor hospitality will benefit from leisure travelers' desire to escape the crowds and noise of their daily lives by offering a more tranquil environment. This ties to the growing interest in backcountry experiences and the desire for wilderness immersion and isolation in areas less traveled. RVing will continue to hold its place in the mindset and behavior of the leisure traveler. Many RVers will seek to experience the spontaneity of pre-pandemic RVing while exploring their own set of amenities on board. RVers and those interested in the lifestyle will continue to enjoy the benefits of having their own space that offers travel safely and securely, mixed with flexibility. Travel planning and booking will be influenced more by AI. Blended travel, where you're camping and going to a resort and going to an Airbnb, will become more and more commonplace, and the pull of nature will always ensure that outdoor hospitality maintains a solid place in the mindset of the leisure traveler. Even with rapid changes in some sectors of outdoor travel, the pull will ensure a healthy and vital segment of leisure travel and hospitality. What do you think of these stats? What do you think of KOA's predictions for the future of camping? What do you think the current landscape for camping is? What do you think this summer is going to be like at the campgrounds? I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Please hit the like button if you got something out of this video. Subscribe if you want more like it. Consider becoming a Mile Marker member. It's our paid community of supporters. You get an extra podcast a week from us and a few extra goodies like RV Today magazine, digital subscriptions, and more. You can learn more at the link in the description below. And as always, join us on the RV Miles podcast, available on its own separate YouTube channel or on any podcast app. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.